I thought this would be helpful for me because a lot of times I delete emails, not really knowing if it was an email I should be looking at or not. I think I just did one yesterday.
And honestly, that's not a terrible thing to do if you're not really sure. Because I can tell you for a fact that there are other SUNY colleagues that I know about who, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I'm going to delete it. If it's important enough, they'll send it again. And I don't know if I really agree with that logic 100%, but I kind of understand where they're coming from with that.
This was like someone, like trying to get me to take a peek at something that I might be interested in purchasing to whatever. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it wasn't somebody from campus, so I just deleted. Here's something else.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, there was a few years ago, there was a lady who had relatives in Spain, and she got an email message from Spain saying, here's some pictures to look at.
Oh.
And of course it was. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of her relatives' kids just had a birthday over there.
So it
just
made
felt it
perfect
was easy to
sense for
fall
somebody
for
to
it,
be sending her pictures. See, and it's scary. And I can, based on some of the things we're saying, we can talk a little bit more about some of the techniques that people use. But and I'm sorry, I didn't catch any of your names, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Ursula Wilkinson. I work for Campus Technology Services. I'm the Campus Information Security Analyst. As such, I wear many, many, many different hats. One of which is security awareness training, which is when we host these kinds of workshops, and we and I say we because it's not just me, but I collaborate with some of my peers in generating content for the CTS cybersecurity website. But a lot of it kind of starts with me and finishes with me. So this is one of the topics that's very, very hot. It's one of the biggest risks that we have. So we are always trying to get the message out to people on how to get better at spotting phishes. Only because it's never going to go away. It's a technique that works. So, if we can share how they do it and why they do it, it gets a little, if you can kind of sort of get in their mind, you can kind of think a little bit more like the bad guy and kind of think about it first before you actually get caught. So, and I love the term fish hook, because you really do get hooked, especially if you're opening those photos that you really shouldn't. So, and I apologize, I have notes, so I'll probably be peeking down here. So some of the things I hope that you will come away with today. Phishing is just one kind of what is known as social engineering. So it's kind of important and to kind of look at the larger kind of aspects, because a lot of what we'll talk about today kind of applies to those other social engineering methods as well. So you'll kind of learn the differences between the types. And again, like I kind of already mentioned, I hope that you'll understand why they are so successful, these kinds of attacks. Because if you can kind of understand what they're trying to do, you can kind of then change your behavior to try to avoid those things. I hope to show you some very, very specific things about emails that have tricked people in the past and what some of the things are that you should be looking for. If you get an email, you're not sure kind of if it's legitimate or not. So there's some very specific characteristics that you can look at. So I'm hoping even if you only take away a couple, it's still better than, if you already knew some of the ones, maybe you'll pick up one or two that you didn't know about. And then importantly too, and this is really important for people, because we all get phishing emails sometimes, another part of my job is putting in technical measures to prevent a lot of that from landing in your inbox. But sometimes they do, and then, sometimes your colleagues might, send you an email that looks kind of fishy, but maybe it is legitimate. So it's really important to know how to follow up to find out if something is legitimate, because there are definitely better ways than other ways to do that. So it's really important. So the definition of phishing, well, actually phishing is a type of social engineering. It's kind of, it hints at, the name of what it is. It's basically a psychological manipulation through a variety of different methods to try to get you to do something that you normally would not or should not. Now that's a very, very broad definition, but that's kind of why the term applies. And that's why phishing is a type of that, because there's all sorts of things that you can do. My previous job, I used to do a lot of this. I was a kind of like an ethical hacker, and companies would hire us to try to hack their networks. And social engineering is probably the easiest way in because, you know, I don't want to say people are the weakest link, but people, and we'll talk about this more later, can tend to be trusting. And it's a little bit easier to do that, to try to manipulate them, than it is to kind of get through some of those technical countermeasures that have been put in. Some of the other types of things that you may have heard of that are actually types of social engineering. You've ever heard of, you know, it's kind of a phenomenon now with social media, but catfishing, pretending to be someone.
I've watched that show.
Yeah, it's scary. Well, and that one is really pure social engineering. There's not really too much anything technical really about it, except for maybe copying people's photos. But that's pure social engineering. Tailgating, not the fun kind that you do before the football game, but tailgating is kind of if you were to go into like a card controlled access area, and then you're authorized, but you don't really recognize the guy behind you, but he kind of just sneaks in behind you. It's called tailgating because they're tailgating you to get in. And again, back to our trusting, helpful nature, we might just be apt to hold the door open for this person. So that's a type of social engineering too. Some other types of social engineering, smishing is done through SMS, text messages on your phone, smishing. It's the same concept, but again, through the variety of different methods. And then phishing is through voice systems like phone calls. Another one that we used to do too, something called baiting. If you ever see just a random USB drive laying on the ground, don't pick it up and use it. You don't know where it came from, but it's bait, right? Like, you know, the guy, my boss actually, my old boss used to do this quite a bit. They would buy a bunch of USB drives, have them printed with whatever company we were trying to break into, their logo, and either send them to marketing or maybe accidentally drop some in the parking lot. Like, oops, marketing dropped a bag of something, but oh yeah, I'll go use this. They plug it into their computer. Like, no. But that's called baiting because they use something that you potentially might want or think has some sort of value, and then they're in. Another one is called pretexting, is when you call someone pretending to be tech support. Hey, you know, this is Ursula from tech support. I noticed there's we're trying to do some updates on your computer, but they're not going through. Is there any way you can give me your password to maybe get that through? Because we really need to get everybody's computers updated.
So what are you calling the other day then?
Yeah, normally I don't call people for that reason. I'm calling because they've already called help desk and I'm calling back out. But again, it's a social manipulation. All of these things have in common that social aspect, the manipulation to get you more. Because normally, would you give your password to someone who's just randomly calling you? You would hope not, but sometimes, you know, they can be really convincing. So, and all of the goals can be varied depending on what they're trying to do. Someone calling you at your desk might actually be trying to get you to install some software that's not supposed to be on your computer. Phishing, often the actual email stuff, they're trying to actually steal your username and password to do any number of things. And oftentimes they will use that as leverage to go break into this system, which is leverage to go break into this system. Other times, like with the catfishing, they're trying to swindle some poor lonely soul out of money, you know, so a lot of it goes back to money. And a lot of what we're seeing now with phishing emails is gift card schemes, right? Your boss calls you, or you get a random kind of weird email that you've never seen your boss send an email of this format, but it's got their name and their title and the right department. Are you available? It's your boss, so you want to answer it, but maybe you don't look too closely at the email address that sent it. But what they're trying to do is get you to buy gift cards, and you scratch off the back of it and you take a photo and send it. And we've actually stopped some check fraud aimed at the students here too. So similar, that was a job scheme, a job offer, kind of part-time job offer. scheme where, oh, you know, I'm going to prepay you to do some of these tasks for me. I'm going to send you a check.
I'm
Check
still
fraud.
waiting for that check from my jury.
Right? And we all are, right? So the one, you know, from your boss, that one's kind of known as spear phishing, because it's not, normally phishes are kind of blasted out to everybody. There's not really a lot of customization, very cheap, very easy to do. Spear phishing involves a little more work on the part of the phisher, because they kind of have to research your organization, and maybe if they're lucky, there's an organizational chart that's posted on the website that they can read. Us, you know, we being a public institution, we have that. We have a lot of that information just freely available on our website. There's reasons for that, but it's there and they can look at it, and the titles are there too. So they know who the deans are, they know who the chief of staff is. So they can kind of spoof some of these people, and you know, they will write things kind of, they'll change the email, they'll target very specific people, because they're not gonna, you know, pretend to be the dean of the school of business, but, you know, maybe go after the economics department. So there's a little more research, but it tends to be a lot more worthwhile for them to do it, because a lot more people fall for it. But that's called spear phishing. And then whaling is when another kind of research heavy kind of campaign, but you go after the big wigs at the organization, the C-suite executives, the vice presidents. And again, a lot of research. And sometimes these campaigns take them a long time to do, but if you go after those big whales, a lot of times, you know, those people have the authority to sign, you know, to authorize wire transfers of lots of money, or or authorize big purchases for other things. So it's worth it for them to do the extra work and go after these, but they're actually just a couple different types of phishing. And these are becoming more and more prevalent because they are more successful and it's more lucrative when they are. So, and again, I kind of already touched on some of this. Why are we so susceptible to this? Because people, you know, we're social creatures. We're a social species. We're inherently helpful towards one another, right? And you want to be also trusting of other human beings. It's kind of just it's a basic tenet of communication that if you're going to communicate effectively and get things done, the point of it is to be truthful. If you're not being truthful, then, you know, what are you doing? And we are all so busy. We have so much stuff to do. And we get so many emails too. I mean, I was out yesterday, but I came in and I had 100 unread emails in my inbox, and that's just my inbox. That wasn't spam. I have other folders too that had lots of other unread emails too. So we're constantly looking for quicker and easier way to do things more efficiently, right? Unfortunately, sometimes we prioritize that efficiency over security, and that's where, you know, you gotta strike the right balance. And we're kind of always looking to get ahead. And when I say that, I mean, you know, when we get that email from the boss, we want to help them out. We want to look good. We want to look like the person who can get things done. You know, so, and I'm not saying to the detriment of anything else, but, you know, we want to look like the person that can do things. We all have ambitions. When the chief of staff says, are you available, people will tend to jump on that because they think it's important. This is an important person. I need to move fast with this.
You get caught off guard sometimes too.
And you do,
You're
and
not thinking, you got so many other things going on, so you just
we're
click
busy.
and not thinking. Yeah.
We're busy. Well, and this is where, you know, we get into look at some of the examples. There'll be a couple of key things, because in your brain, the pattern will get established, right? And Google's good about kind of marking some of the things that might be important to you based on some of the emails that you've opened in the past. So Google tries to help you with some of that stuff. It's not perfect, but if Google's marking something as important for you in your inbox, it's more likely that might be something you want to actually open. But phishing is so, out of all these things that happen a lot, phishing is one of the more successful ones. Why is that? Again, because we have mountains and mountains of email to sift through every day. Again, being busy, there's just too much of it. We're in a hurry. We need to read the important ones and take care of them and get through it. Email, at least for me, is kind of like the de facto communication standard, and it is for a lot of not only higher eds, but other verticals too. there's a record of it, and some people kind of use it as their memory, like, oh, what did we talk about? It's in the email. There are other electronic communication methods that are coming up, but again, they're also being attacked, like those SMS text messages and some of the automated voice calls. Email in particular is one of it's easier to kind of weaponize email, because I didn't even touch on the fact that you can attach a document to an email. But it's getting easier to kind of weaponize those attachments and have them contain malicious code or malicious links that kind of, and this is where, these are the technical countermeasures that I kind of have to try to do while maintaining a good balance of usability. But you can put malicious links in attachments that kind of auto-load and you don't necessarily know. Some of that's gotten better, but the PDFs and the doc files that get attached can have all manner of different kind of tweaks done to them to kind of make them malicious.
I know I'm always very cautious when people send me jokes or pictures.
Mm-hmm. And
this is
JPEGs.
funny, and it's a valid email address because I know the person, but a lot of times I just click.
Well, and we'll come that you just touched on something very, very important, and we'll definitely see that later on in the examples.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's good that you brought it up because it's a good reminder for me as well. It looks like it was from the person that was in your inbox, but was it? I'll just kind of leave that out there. But the point is, like emails, it's very easy. It's a little bit more difficult to do with phones and other types of things, but email kind of is purpose built for that. And there's a lot of tools out there. It's scary. I don't want to use the word trivial, but how straightforward it is to create one of these malicious documents and just send it. A lot of the things that we like about some of the like Word documents and PDFs, a lot of those neat little things that it can do can be used for good, but can be used for bad too. So, but email is purpose built for sending documents, so that's why I say it's easier to do that. And again, in addition to creating the malicious documents, there's lots and lots of tools out there freely available, for the neighborhood kid down the street to just download and start, creating phishing email campaigns. When a lot of those values that you see, like the from field and the actual name, a lot of that stuff, there are tools out there that you can get that'll just put in whatever you want. Mm. It doesn't really have to be true. You can type in whatever you want, and that's how the email will get sent. So who you think it might actually be from, probably isn't. And again, we'll touch more on that too. So without further ado, we've touched on some of these things, some of these examples here. So this is the classic example of that phishing email. This is something that we got. Some of the other kind of juicy information is stripped off of this because we just kind of took a picture of this. But this is what those look like when it's coming from the dean of the School of Business or from the president's secretary. They're very sparse. They'll have a subject that says "in office?" ? Or something, just very, very sparse subject. And this is kind of basic, right? It says sent from my iPhone. I don't know if President Stanley actually uses an iPhone or not. Most people probably wouldn't, right? So that's plausible, but is it likely that she's going to be doing that? Maybe. So you're like, all right. One of these things, you could foresee some, and another premise that's usually in this is, I'm in a meeting, an important meeting right now, can you help me with something? Same kind of thing. But someone has gone to, the trouble of researching President Stanley, and they know that she works at SUNY Oswego, and they know they've addressed it to a specific person, right? Because they've done their homework. They looked at our website. More than likely, they probably are targeting a certain department with this. Though they don't do like the entire campus at once, because of course that would raise a red flag, especially with somebody like me trying to watch for this stuff. But one department or maybe a subset of a department might fly under the radar, right? So I can't remember exactly who this went to. I could probably look, but it's very like, they're creating a sense of urgency, right? Because it's President Stanley. Email me back once you get this. Okay, this is important. This is President Stanley. She wants me to email her back right away. That's where you should be like, I've never gotten an email from President Stanley before. She's not even giving me a hint as to what this could possibly be about.
Which would be unusual too.
Yes, yes. But again, we're trying to look good in front of the, you know, in front of the bigwigs. So this might actually catch someone. Sometimes, and this is less common, somebody's email account will actually get hacked, but they don't necessarily do anything with it right away. They might sit on it, but they might actually look to see what this person's outgoing emails look like. And they might try to recreate what their signature line looks like, if they've got images, what kind of links they have in there. So if anybody is used to getting emails from this person, they can make it look the same. But oftentimes they haven't. More often than not, they haven't, and they just do something to make it look like it's coming from a mobile, because that adds a little bit more plausibility to the fact that it's very sparse. It doesn't have everything that you would expect in her email. Oh, it's from her iPhone, that makes sense. Yeah, but it also makes sense that it's not really from her. So I wish I could tell you what email address this came from specifically, but the campaigns that we've been seeing over the past couple months will be coming from ursula.wilkinson.oswego.edu@gmail.com. So
That doesn't sound suspicious at all.
well, it's strange because they have, so I have a rule in place to kind of catch those, but I can't catch everything. And sometimes, like I was mentioning before, that's the email address that they're actually using, right? They've gone to Google, set that up for themselves, even though that's not them. They've set up, it'll say Ursula Wilkinson, and it'll say ursula.wilkinson.oswego.edu@gmail.com. So for all intents, that part of it is actually true. That's what they're actually using. But that's not me. That is not our official email format. So again, that goes back to kind of looking kind of closely.
Not just see the name and then,
Correct.
That's Ursula, click.
Exactly. And again, that one, there are several, there's probably at least 36 free email providers that kind of offer the same kind of free email services. I've gotten most of them, but I know that there's more out there that aren't commonly used, so if somebody stumbles upon one, I might not catch it, but that's the pattern with those. The other thing to remember too, and again, I didn't capture this information here in this one, I was telling you about those email tools that will put in whatever you want, even if it's not true. They could put Ursula Wilkinson, and then the email address that's actually sending it could be something completely different. It could be abc123@gmail.com. And that's a little bit harder. That one tricks people usually because they see the name, but they don't necessarily, and depending on how you're reading the email, you might not actually see the sender email address. You just see the name, and that's unfortunate. But that's one of those things that you have to be thinking about. Oh, I see this, but this is kind of weird for Ursula to be sending me this spreadsheet. Like, who actually sent this? And even with ones that kind of hide that information, there's a way for you to get to it. Just depends. But Google's good because Google will show you, the name and the sender email address. And you have to look at both. Somebody got caught on one not too long ago because it had an important name in the front, but you have to look at the sender email address. Because sometimes they don't bother lying about it. They use the email address that they use to send you the email, but it's not Ursula's. It's abc123@gmail.com. That doesn't make sense. So that's an important thing to remember. Again, another example of this is one of the other ones that they also did some research on. Again, I'm currently tied up in a seminar right now, and I need some help. Drop your personal phone number. Yeah, they want to take the conversation out of email as soon as possible because it's not likely that the organization has any kind of technical controls over your personal cell phone. I mean, there might be some, or we might have, if you have a work phone, we might have put some security software on there to protect you, but we don't police your personal phones. So, personal, that's interesting. Why wouldn't you just, why can't I call you from my office phone? That's funny. Text messages, And grammar errors too.
Yeah.
Thank, not thanks or
That's
thank you.
nothing compared to a lot of them are
Yes.
really poorly written.
Yes, but again, it goes back to phishing campaigns being really cheap and easy to do, and a lot of it comes, and it's not, I'm not trying to stereotype any area or person, but a lot of it comes from Eastern Europe, and a lot of it from Asia as well. Non-native speakers of English, so it's like a gift from them when it's not, because English is a hard language to learn compared to others. So in that respect, it's a little bit of an edge for us because non-native speakers can pick up on things. But other than that, which could be just she forgot to put the S, that's actually a pretty grammatically correct sentence. So, but again, she's done. I say she. The Fisher's done their homework, right? They've looked her up. It's on People Search. They can see who she is. They might have actually, People Search returns the department, so they can look at the departmental page and see who else she might be communicating with on a regular basis. And they know, development and alumni relations. So this might be sent to other people in her department. And they know where. And there's a struggle, and this is kind of underlying some of this too. The question has been posed numerous times, and a lot of higher ed struggle with this. Why do we put all this information out there? There's lots, and the answer is lots of reasons. There's lots of good reasons to put it out there. In order to have those good reasons and have that usefulness that provides, we end up having to deal with this. There are some things that you can do, but it's kind of, once it's out there, it's kind of out there. A lot of this information doesn't change frequently, so once it's out there, it's kind of, we can lock it all up again, but a lot of this is going to be valid for a while. So at that point, the horse is already out of the barn. What do you do? Well, the thing that works the best is telling people how to stop these things so they don't fall for them. Honestly, that's the better thing. Technical measures are nice, but they're never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect security ever. And there can't be, because otherwise, it'd be great to have a perfectly secure computer is one that doesn't connect to the internet. So, but it's not particularly useful. So again, another one example of those. The next one has a little bit more of that information. And normally I probably would have maybe obfuscated some of this, but it's kind of important to show you. So see how it says the name, David Linnaberry, but that very clearly probably is not David Linnaberry's email address. And this one was in Google, this is where I got this screenshot. And it came to one of our students. But again, this one is kind of strange too. They're capitalizing words in the text of the email that don't really make a ton of sense to capitalize. Now, non-native speakers wouldn't do that.
Well, maybe that's why they need a personal assistant.
Yeah, maybe. And to have them write better phishing emails, right? It's not personalized either. It's dear applicant. If you're going to bother, it's very easy to kind of personalize emails, even for mass campaigns now. Why would you do that? The subject, there's nothing useful in that at all. If I got this, I'd be like, what is this about? Trying to write meaningful subject lines is important. Not only for legitimate purposes, like why should I? If it's something that looks like it might be something I want to open, then I will. But this, no, there's no hint at all. That's a red flag as well. And just to go back to the sender email address, that one was probably either purposely generated for this campaign or someone hacked it and they're using it to send spam, because that happens a lot too. And that's also why you can't automatically trust emails that come from people that you know. You still have to keep your guard up, because if they haven't secured their account properly, it's entirely possible that someone's using it to send spam or phishing emails. And that's a little scary too to think about, but it can and does happen. That's why it's important to just, and there's usually nothing wrong with opening an email, but clicking on the links or opening the attachments can be kind of dangerous. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be, but email clients have gotten better, that you couldn't really even open an email safely. because there were little things that the email program would render or do behind the scenes just on opening that were kind of dangerous, but they've kind of fixed a lot of those problems. I'm sure that at some point there'll be some sort of trick that somebody thinks of.
It's like whack-a-mole.
Yes, it is, and that's the other fun thing about trying to secure things. I tend to I call it whack-a-mole or a game of chess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it really is. You know, they make this move, I make this counter move, then they got to try something different. So, again, there's no signature really. I mean, it says Mr. David Linneberry, but they don't offer any contact information to follow up. That seems kind of strange too. But they, what do they say? Normally, I've seen other examples. They would say, reply to me with your personal email or personal cell phone, and we can start moving on this.
Send me a check to.
Yeah, something like that. But again, so again, weird, and this is kind of obvious, but nouns he capitalized, native speakers might not, but then they miss Mexico being capitalized. So there's, the grammar problems. It's not a personalized message, it's just applicant. The name doesn't match the sender address. There's no contact information. Not that you should trust contact information that's in one of these phishing emails. But if you thought this person might be legitimate, maybe you do a quick Google search on David Linneberry. Who is this person? Is this a plausible story even for David Linneberry? It might not be. Maybe there's an obituary for David Linneberry. They say you're in Mexico. Maybe you find an obituary for David Linneberry in Mexico. That's strange. But again, this is one of those things that's like a tip for checking these out if you want. Yeah, so.
Isn't it more common? I know with technology nowadays, maybe I'm kind of old school.
Mm-hmm.
You get a call on the phone. If somebody's serious, because if you applied for a position,
Mm-hmm.
is this assuming that somebody applied for a position where they would have gotten like a phone number, you would think already, and they would, if it was that urgent, they would try to notify you via phone? But maybe not necessarily nowadays.
I think most legitimate kind of offers and companies kind of understand the risks. Everyone faces these risks. Their people face these risks. They don't want their people kind of responding like that. I think because most people kind of understand the nature of what's happening now, those kinds of processes have kind of evolved, and they build in some kind of time in the process. Okay, well, we called you, we're going to give you a day or two to respond. It's not going to be super urgent. But the main, and this goes back to that phishing through voice calls, right? I don't answer unknown numbers anymore, period, because just like email, those numbers can be spoofed. You don't know who is actually calling you anymore.
I noticed Verizon started putting on this maybe spam.
Sure.
Under
yeah.
the numbers on the phone.
There are some apps out there that will do it for you. Unfortunately, they need kind of access to your contacts and to be able to look at your call data. It makes sense that they would need that to kind of see if it's spam, but yeah, they can spoof a number. It's pretty straightforward to do. So and the same thing with email. I think everybody kind of understands the threat landscape now, and that you really shouldn't be putting someone in that position where they felt like they absolutely had to answer the phone right now. And they didn't know about it. It'd be different if you kind of made arrangements for a phone call and it was around the same time. That's different. But I think most people understand that the way things are, you can't really do that anymore.
The classic is sending something claiming to be a grandchild that's injured or whatever they need, to the grandparents.
So we'll talk about that too, because there are
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, because towards the end, I talk about some things that you can do to kind of, if you think you need to follow up on some of this stuff, what you should do. Because, some of these are going to be very obviously not legitimate, but some of them might be. So what do you do in that case? We'll talk more about that.
My wife actually got one of those.
Did you? Yeah.
And with the real grandson and everything out of state.
Yeah.
And was really nervous.
That's scary.
They wanted money quick, like wire some money because he was in trouble. Blah,
That's
blah,
scary.
and it was pretty well done, I guess.
Well, and that's where you have to, and again, the ones that are about bodily harm, there's another kind of campaign that I didn't talk about that I wrote rules in our email filters attached, so hopefully these didn't land. They haven't been landing in people's inboxes, but there's extortion phishing email campaigns that basically say, hey, I installed some malware on your computer, on your laptop, and you know, it's pardon me for being crass. I saw you on a porn site and captured what you were doing. If you don't want the video that I took to be sent to everyone, pay me, you know, half a Bitcoin. And they typically ask for Bitcoin because it's an anonymous cryptocurrency that can't be traced. Not like wire transfers or banking transfers. It's anonymous. So a lot of that happens too, and you have to, whenever something triggers that sense of urgency, like right now I have to act without thinking. Take a breath. All right, something just happened with my grandchild. All right, I need to maybe not call or whatever, but let me call their neighbor. Don't use the information that they give you, and we're kind of getting there right now. I'll come back to this one, but since we're kind of already talking about it, you follow up, right? If you think it's legitimate, if it's something that you really think you ought to do, you can't really tell, but it's important not to use any of the methods that they provide for you to follow up. If there's any contact information in that email, it cannot be trusted. You have to look for contact information from other sources that you know that you can trust. For some people, and this is tricky because I told you that sometimes people that you know, people who you've had email exchanges with, sometimes get their email addresses hacked. So this is, again, with that big caveat, but if you already have some known good contact information for them, use that instead. If they sent you something via email, give them a call on the cell phone number that you know that they have or their office line, especially if it's something peculiar. And I can say, like, it's all about kind of recognizing patterns. If you're all the time exchanging a CSV file with some data with this one person, but all of a sudden you get something from them that's now docx instead of CSV, that doesn't fit the pattern, right? It doesn't fit the pattern of your exchanges. So that might be, you know, if it's somebody in earth sciences, hey, just call them on the office extension. Hey, did you mean to send me that, you know, that data in docx? Because maybe their email did get hacked, and because a lot of times what the attackers will also do is read the emails that are in your inbox and start to initiate conversations, already like do some replies and some already established conversations. If they look in your sent box and they see a whole bunch of CSVs going to Ursula, maybe I can sneak her a docx and she just will open it because she's used to getting files from me. So you have to look for the patterns. You know, is this something that I normally would expect from this person? But again, follow up via a different means of communication, phone calls, a different phone number. If you have, again, a known good alternate email address for them, use that. I know nowadays some of my CTS colleagues, and I occasionally use something called Slack. It's like a chat platform. That would be like another thing. And Google has the Hangouts that you can, I don't know if anybody uses that at all, but the point is it's a different method of communication than how that message arrived. And that would be kind of the same thing for, like, if you got one of those messages via text, right? A lot of the way that those work is that they're actual links to somewhere, you click on the link and then, but if it came via text, give that person an actual phone call. Because more than likely it's somebody that's in your contacts. Or send them an email. Hey, did your because a lot of times they pretend to be Facebook messages or something. Did your Facebook get hacked? Because I got this weird text from, Facebook, or supposedly from Facebook from you. But again, alternate method. If you think it's important, more than likely it's not. But if there's a chance, use an alternate method.
You see often somebody will send out create a second Facebook page with the person the same name and sending out invites. I've seen that quite a few times.
Yeah, that's related to kind of the catfishing problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of known as imposters, imposter accounts. Hi, man. And those are trickier to catch. There's there's a way to kind of check for imposter accounts that are built off of anything that you posted. It's a little kind of technical look into it. It's funny, but basically, you might take some of the images that you have and do what's called a reverse image search. And anything that's kind of public, there's the reverse image search. There's, I believe, a tool that will do that for you, and there might actually be like a web service that'll do it. But it goes and kind of searches for photos that match what you provide, kind of like the fingerprint of the image.
Yeah, if the person send a post on her page that there's a false thing and that she contacted.
Yeah, and
Facebook.
Facebook will take them down when they know, but sometimes it's hard to even know that they're out there. And sometimes what will commonly happen is they'll flip their first name and last name. So it'll say like Wilkinson Ursula. So people that I know might think it's me because that's my name, but it's not. It's backwards. But sometimes you don't even know they exist, which is why it's helpful to Google yourself sometimes.
Why do it because I had to invite.
Well, there's that too, but maybe they might be avoiding everybody that person knows. Maybe they're trying to target somebody else completely unrelated, right? So, you can Google yourself, and if you find something, you can do or if you can Google. I keep saying it because that's just kind of the default search engine now. But if you look up how to do a reverse image search on any of your photos, there's ways that you can do that, and because a lot of times what they're doing is stealing your profile photo or any of those other kinds of things and using those to create those accounts. But because they're the same photo, those reverse image searches will pick up on them and you can see them, especially if they're using your name. But sometimes they might not use your name, but just use your photo. And depending on the service and who's hosting that, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Instagram, there's ways for dealing with that, especially if it's an imposter. The other important, so we talked about known senders a little bit and not using that method of communication. But what if you don't know this person, but there's still a chance it might be legitimate? Could you think about some of those emails that you get for fake packages and here's the tracking link and I'm gonna go check it out? Or I think some of the other things that happen. Oh, you missed a Google Voice call and here's the transcript.
Here's IRS.
Yep, sure. Some of those are a little bit trickier, but if it's actually supposedly from a person, and sometimes from companies will put this information too. If it's like something from your bank that, there's a fraud alert, click here to check it. Okay, maybe not so much there. Maybe I'll open up a browser, go to my banking site and kind of search for that information there. Don't trust the links there. So for like those banking fraud alerts or Facebook kind of things that, okay, so I'll open up Facebook login and there probably is some sort of associated message that I'll get when I get there. This is from David Linneberry. All right, who is David Linneberry? Was there a David Linneberry that taught in a school in Mexico? Oh shoot, there's an obituary for this person. That doesn't make any sense. So just the theme is, if you think it is, search it. Like, make sure that you're looking elsewhere other than what the information that they provide for you. Follow up outside. Search the person, search the company. A lot of the times the notifications will, and it's tricky because if you've never gotten a fraud alert from your bank, you don't necessarily know what it looks like. But a lot of times banks and other kind of financial institutions will have kind of that information available to you. Or there's a chat tech support you can ask. Be like, hey, I got this email. I think it might be real. It's coming from blah, blah, blah. Is this true? Now, to protect themselves, sometimes they may answer your question, sometimes they will. But if in doubt, if there's some sort of fraud activity, logging into your account will tell you, right? You'll log in, you'll see what's happening. That's kind of what the point of a fraud alert is, right? To make sure that you go in and check things. Even if you don't do it by the link that they give you, if you go in and check, you kind of you address that urgent need, but you haven't done it in a risky way. And the same thing with those crazy, your grandchild's been kidnapped. Don't follow up the way they want you to. Follow up somewhere else, because that is something that needs follow up. But call the police, call the neighbor, call their roommate, call some. Don't trust that. That's just way too scary and way too risky.
Personally, just one quick question. I'm
Sure.
really not very techy, but I'm getting better and better when I attend things like this as well. So if I get a suspicious email and I click on it and it just opens it up to like the email itself, I'm still good usually. It's they want you to click something within that email though, right?
Yeah,
That's what I never really understood. Should I just get rid of it now?
Because it used to be, before they put the new restriction security in, it used to be if you clicked on that email back.
right, and
Back in the
I
day,
mentioned that
so that's where
earlier.
you're-
Right, but because the attacks were being built that way, it's that game of chess, right? They start manipulating, because when I think about like an email reader, right, I think about like Outlook or Thunderbird. So, if you open up the email in Thunderbird might automatically be super helpful and go and load all of the things that came in the email, but maybe one of those things is a malicious thing and it probably shouldn't have. Well, when the bad guys figure that out, Mozilla then kind of changes the way Thunderbird works to account for that. But the bad guys are always looking for the next chess move. So, but yes, now you're okay doing that. Back in the day, like I mentioned, it used to be trickier. But nowadays, there's a lot less risk with just opening it. The real risk is clicking on the link and going where they want,
Where they
or
want,
opening the attachment.
The attachment is still huge.
Yep. And I will say, because I'm struggling with how there are some people that have had some issues with spam on campus sending emails. And one of them, and I'm glad it didn't get marked as phishing, but it got marked as spam. They were trying to send out an office document. It was docx format, and those are more suspicious just automatically. So if you get one of those, no, I would shy away from that. And that would be something that I would definitely follow up out of band with the sender. Did you need to send me this document? Even because most of the time I don't expect documents like that. And with the advent of Google and sharing documents, it's even less kind of necessary to email somebody directly a document. It still does happen, but it's less likely and less necessary. And we only have a couple more minutes before the session actually ends, so I was going to go through some quizzes to kind of show you other examples, because there are some phishing quizzes, and I'll kind of stop this for a second. There are these examples that I showed you, as well as some other information about phishing, is on the CTS cybersecurity website. This is the quick way to get there, right? Cybersecurity. So CTS cybersecurity, a lot of people don't know that we have that now, but it's been there for a while. There's a lot of information here about other cybersecurity topics, but a lot about phishing as well.
I'm glad you showed me that, because I teach a section on that.
Oh,
That's good.
awesome. So right now, kind of the main page features two-factor authentication, but over here to the right, we've got a bunch of helpful links listed. Phishing is here. I took some of the examples that I went over here, but there are some quizzes, kind of if you scroll down to about the middle of the page. These are really good practice. I periodically check that these quizzes are still here. I don't know if I put there's another one that Google has too, that's really good. If I can, I'll try to remember to get that updated, but Google has a good phishing quiz too. But these are pretty good, they're good practice, because that's the real thing about phishing, right? The more you practice with stuff that you know is not going to hurt you, like these quizzes, the better you kind of get at spotting them or just being more suspicious. And that's the other part of it too. You have to be, it's okay to be a little bit suspicious nowadays. There really is. But there's ways for you to go and follow up and get the information that you need if you really do it. And the other thing I was going to show you too, really quickly, if you get one of these things, what do you have to do with it? First and foremost, it's fine to just delete it. just delete it right out. Just, you can, however it is it arrived, if you're using Outlook, if you're using, you know, if you're reading your email and Google, there's, there'll be 3 vertical dots kind of on the upper right of the email. You can click on those and there's a mark phishing option, but that'll only be visible if you read your email in a browser. If you're reading it on your smartphone or if you're reading it in like Outlook or Thunderbird, that won't be available. But you can do that, you don't have to, and it's safe to ignore them. It's better to just delete them so you don't accidentally open them or accidentally think you're clicking one email and download the attachment, but it's really just safe to delete those. If you feel like being helpful, you can mark them as phishing with Google because they have automated algorithms that try to catch this stuff, but they need help, right? They need human help to catch the things that they missed. So that kind of helps train their algorithms to spot those things. The other thing you can do if you want to be helpful and kind of let your other, let the greater campus community know that you got this, there's a phishing at oswego.edu that you can forward it to. It's monitored by CTS, and we can look at some of those things. If we see like a great big campaign of things happening, we might, you know, put out some communication about that. But it also helps us kind of fix our stuff too, because that's how because I periodically go in and tweak some of those technical countermeasures. But if I don't know that the phishing is getting through, I don't know what I don't know. So unless somebody shows me that, I won't see it. So it's another thing you can do if you want to be helpful. But again, the real thing is don't open it, and it's fine to just delete it. So.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I don't want to hold you up, but feel free to
Yeah,
have
I'm
any
getting a
questions.
presentation.
Oh, I completely
So I-
understand.
I didn't want you to think I wasn't coming to your next session because I didn't like it.
That's fine.
Presentation.
No worries. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name again.
Bill Bosch, I'm computer science department.
Oh, okay.
And
All
I'm
right.
John's assistant for the semester.
Oh, okay.
And
All
I
right.
was the original self-director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think,
I don't
well,
want to say how long
Back in the
ago.
well, I started in October of 2016, so I think for as long as I've been here, it was John, right? Probably?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
I mean, we're talking 20.
20,
Yeah, I was self-director for 15 years. But I do, in the course I teach, I'm retired formally 12 years ago. And
Okay.
and Doug Lee keeps calling me in for one
help.
more semester. I think I'm going to retire for real. But
Keeps
another course I teach is CSC 103, as we teach that's the computer science for educators. And we do, you know, we do literacy, paper, spreadsheet, not spreadsheet, website,
Mhm.
but the topic I pick is security. So
So feel
I
free.
didn't know this exists, so I will be.
Yes, and feel free to steal from that if you like. I'm also a good resource. I mean, I'm sure you know quite a bit as well. I used to be a penetration tester, so if you ever need to pick my brain about any of that, feel free to let me know.
Or I could write you in for 10, 15 minutes.